All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the last session of the 2019 Mac Admins Conference. My goal for this session, for my presentation, is to cover software that would allow you to manage software in your Mac computer labs, and of course, on a budget. So the majority of the software that I'm going to cover is free, so that definitely fits within a budget. But my name is Brian Davis. I come from East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. And so I decided to include one of the pictures of our campus as one of our more photogenic spots, is right fountain with right auditorium right behind it. And this software that I'm going to talk about today is currently in use in my particular group at ECU. So, of course, I come from ECU, East Carolina University. I manage roughly 400 Macs in our student computer labs group, and which is in roughly 20 different labs. I've worked for the past 15 years in technology. I started off in a strictly Windows environment, supporting just Windows, and I dabbled in Macs for the first part of those years, and then I shifted over to supporting Windows and Macs on a personal machine basis for students at ECU for about 5 years, including replacing hardware in a bunch of MacBook Pros. For roughly the past 3-4 years, I have been what you would consider a Mac admin. I came up to this conference back in 2017 and added on some tools to help me be a better Mac admin. Let me give you some background to my group at ECU. So, to my knowledge, we started off back in 2005. To the best of my knowledge, the situation at the time, we just unboxed the Macs and installed software manually. And not too long after that, we moved to monolithic images and that particular image scheme. And we would have images, not really master images for all of our labs, but some specific images for some special rooms, and those would get, of course, quite sizable. There was one that I saw while doing research for this presentation. It was around the 100 gig range, and as you can imagine, that would take some time to apply. So around about late 2016, early 2017, my boss heard of Munki and suggested that I look into it, and sure enough, I was able to implement it, and we haven't looked back since, especially with being able to move to thin imaging, which is essentially just a base image and a few packages needed for Munki. With that, I believe the image pared down to roughly 13 gig. And the first time that I did it on some of our new machines that we got in, the image time came into around about a minute. I was blown away. I had never imaged that quickly before. And of course, most of the load was offset to Munki, and of course it took much longer to get the machines up and running, but just the image time was at a minute. And of course, imaging has gone away, unfortunately. But let me talk about software management a little bit. So whenever we talk about software management, what are the goals that we want that software to do? Essentially to install, uninstall, and also distribute updates. And I threw in a bonus there at the bottom, being able to configure settings on the Mac, which it wasn't my goal whenever I implemented Munki, and I found out that I could. And I was like, yes, I don't have to configure settings on each and every machine manually. Now, talking about software management on the budget, unfortunately in the education environment, and I'm sure in many other organizations, we typically have limited budgets. So this software will work great for those environments. This software has a low startup cost, in my opinion, and or recurring costs, and most of it is free. So I believe I might have touched on it already, but the benefit of implementing Munki would be the low startup cost. It depends on what you use for the Munki server. If you have an existing machine that's lying around that you could use that's not too overly slow or old, or the Munki server can be installed on a machine that can host a web server. In my case, I have a Mac Mini. I believe the hardware is late 2013, and that's what I use to host the Munki server. So now I've mentioned Munki several times. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to overview Munki Admin, Munki Report, those tools to complement Munki. It's just meant to be an overview, just so that you are aware of the programs, and I'll give you a few commands that will help you out, but I will not go in depth since I'm covering so much during this presentation. So if you were here earlier this week, Rick Heil had a presentation that went into depth with Munki. And so there's way more information about Munki in his presentation, so I encourage you to check that out whenever it's posted up on YouTube. But for those of you that weren't able to attend that session and aren't familiar with Munki, Munki is an open source project. I forgot to put Greg Nagel's name in the presentation, but it was created by him, and he works for Walt Disney Animation Studios in Burbank, California, I believe. Looking back at the history of Munki up on GitHub, version 1.0 was released back in 2014. So the requirements for Munki is to have a system that on the server side, the requirement is that the system has a web server, and essentially the web server is just hosting the Munki repo. On the client side, of course, this software is intended for Mac OS machines, and one of the bonuses is that it can be used if you are using an MDM currently, so it can be used at the same time. So what can Munki do? Munki can install software, install packages, DMG files, and also some custom installers. With custom installers, sometimes, actually I say most times, there is extra work that needs to be done as well. In my case, what I normally do is I take the installer, put it into a package, into the package payload, and then have a post-install script that runs the particular commands that need to be run with the switches that are needed. On the software uninstall side, I included a bunch of different keys that could be included into Munki and different uninstall options. The one that I use the most is uninstall script, which is essentially just a bash script. Munki can also manage updates. It can install program updates. Now, these are typically loaded manually, in my case, or it can also be incorporated through auto package or auto packager, which actually I use both. I correct myself. Auto packager, I put an asterisk right next to it because it is currently not actively supported or under development. So it still works in, I will vouch for High Sierra. I heard of another instance where it did work in Mojave. There was a catch with Jamf, though, if my memory serves me correctly. With Auto Packager, it is a graphical interface for Auto Package, and one of the features that I like is that it can be scheduled to run at specific times. So if you wanted to run it every day and check for updates for your selected software, it can be done once a day, once a week. You pretty much name the time, and it will check for those updates at that time. So continuing with the updates, it can also install macOS updates. And Munki is not set to check for updates by default, but with that particular command, that will get Munki to, during the check that it does roughly every hour, it will, depending on the setting of your machine, it will check for updates. Now, of course, your machine by default is set to check for updates directly from Apple, but you can use what is called Reposado. With the implementation of that, it's basically just a copy of Apple's update repo on a machine of your choosing. And the Munki can also install configuration profiles. I started off with packaging up configuration profiles as a payload in a package and then running a post-install script after the fact to get configuration profiles on a machine. But Munki has since gained the capability of installing configuration profiles natively. So with one of the commands I'm getting ready to show you, Munki import, if you were to take that configuration profile and import it into Munki, it will install it automatically. And of course, it can also work with scripts and also no PKG install items. Those are essentially just package info files with a script inside. There's no payload, nothing else. And also, well, I won't go over payload-free packages, but that's also an option. So the Munki structure is essentially a server-client structure where the server hosts the Munki repo and all the software and settings, and of course clients check into that server. But the server does not require that Munki tools. So the install package that you get off of GitHub, the Munki's tools installer does not need to be installed on the server. The server is of course a simple web server. The directories that are typically found in a Munki repo, which is normally named Munki_repo, is manifests, catalogs, PKGS or packages, packages info, and also icons. The server-side structure can include Munki repo mirrors. In my case, I'll give you a little bit of backstory about my situation, but I found this as a possibility and wanted to mention it. So during the image process, I would normally get done with imaging, and then after they got done, of course, do a reboot. And whenever they got to the login screen, I would automatically kick off the initial Munki check. So you have 22, 23 machines at least checking in all at the same time. And in certain rooms, there's a lot of software that needs to be downloaded and installed. Adobe Creative Cloud, for one. It's like the latest one is 13 gigs it has to download. But so the load on just that one little Mac Mini server, it seemed to be a lot. I didn't really verify it, but I could definitely tell things could go faster. So you can actually have several different Munki repos. Now the key is you have to keep all of them synced. I'm sure you can tell that, but what I normally do is I have one machine that I pick on and is the primary repo, and I do all my updates to that particular repo, and I have a script that includes the bottom rsync command that takes all the files in the Munki repo directory and then makes sure that the other two mirrors are exactly the same. And there is one caveat with the rsync command. My Munki repo machine is a macOS based machine, so I'm not sure if it's over on Linux, but that command only works on macOS. Over on the client side, the clients, whenever you install Munki tools and get it configured, the clients check in roughly every hour by default, but there is some functionality included within that program to randomize the traffic to the server. that was kind of negated with my imaging process with all the machines checking in at one time. So, but anyways, the files needed for Munki are installed on the client machines at /usr/local/Munki. There are also some files placed into the launch daemons folder, which gets Munki started up whenever the machine is started up. But also Managed Software Center, the GUI side, about like the App Store, is installed into the applications directory. Managed Software Center is a graphical interface to the Munki program itself, and due to the files and whatnot in Launch Daemons folder, Munki runs with essentially root privileges. Now, talking more about the Munki structure, manifests, catalogs, packages, package info files are all essentially text-based files, and they're all in the plist format. So I'll start off with manifests, which this is the definition off of GitHub, and I reworded it just a little bit. A manifest is essentially a text file that lists items that need to be installed, uninstalled, and also lists any included manifests. Whenever you configure your end clients, you set the client identifier preference, and that essentially assigns it to a particular manifest. So here's a look at some of my manifests. I started off with having a manifest for each particular computer lab. This is just a few of them, but the top one, I'll take that one. HSB stands for Health Sciences Building, and then the room number, I just kept it short. That's what I named that's usually included in the first part of my computer names of my machines. So if we were to look into one of those files, here's a little bit that you would see. So the first section is catalogs, and you see it's assigned to the main catalog. And then you get down to conditional items, which that sets some rules that are customized so that, let's say you have an item that you only want to be installed on one machine, you can use these conditional items to specify that particular machine. And further down, you have included manifests. Here you'll see two different ones, general paper cut and general configuration. In the included manifest section, you can nest manifests or, of course, include other manifests in it. So anything that is in a specified manifest will get included with this particular manifest. So in general configuration, that's just a manifest where I have a lot of my configurations, where I set settings and all that good stuff. Managed install section, that is what has been specified to be installed in this particular lab. So the first item is Adobe Creative Cloud 2019, the full edition or the whole thing. Audacity is next, and so on and so forth down the list. And next is catalogs. Munki catalogs are the main mechanism by which a macOS systems administrator can deploy certain software installations and updates to one group of users while denying those same installs and updates to another group. Additionally, Munki catalogs allow for filtering which versions of installer items are visible to a specific group of Mac machines. The typical use case that I see for the use of catalogs is with testing and production. So if you want a set of machines to get the software that is new and might have some bugs in it, and you want to test those. Of course, the other side would be your production side. So everything that's been vetted, you put it over in that catalog as well. So just like manifests, they look very similar to manifests. They are in a plist layout. The first one is auto remove. That one's set to false, and then you get to catalogs. with this particular one being main, and have a couple more descriptors down there below. That is a good question. I have not seen it before today. So the question is, what is auto remove? So on display name, so this is where in the catalog each particular item that is in the catalog is listed. So it starts off with the display name and so on and so forth. I work strictly in Munki admin in regards to catalogs. So the rest of this information I wasn't aware that it included in catalogs. So it's kind of interesting that it included a lot more information. So continuing on, what I like to call install items. I don't think that's the official term for all the packages and DMGs and mobile configs, macOS installers. But in the PKGS folder, that's where they are. So package info files for each package item or installer item in the packages folder, there is an associated package info file. And of course, definition from GitHub. Much of the stuff Munki can do is because of the package metadata made available through the catalogs, which are in turn made from data in package info files. So whenever your first item is incorporated into the Munki repo, you're asked to set a catalog. What catalog do you want it to be a part of? And whenever at the very end, it asks whether you want to rebuild the catalogs. During that particular stage, that's when the catalog is first made. So these are alsoplists, and digging into one, it begins all the metadata for the package that was specified, which is Audacity 222, looks like. It includes the account that imported the package, which was administrator in my case, the creation date, which I imported back in 2018, the version of Munki that was used to import it, and so on and so forth. So I want a few lines down, you have catalogs, which auto remove shows up in there as well. So you have category, description, developer. I typically don't set those, but you certainly can. Display name, which is, in this case, is Audacity. That's what the end user sees. And on down the list, you have a hash item, and then it specifies what file name is used, or at least this is tied to. Oh, I should have gone through these so that you could probably see them better. My apologies. So when you implement Munki, or if you do, I certainly suggest that you secure it because essentially it is unencrypted, unsecured. I mean, whenever you first implement it, you can turn off directory listings, of course, and it would make things much more difficult for someone who wants to get their hands on the software. You can implement HTTP basic authentication, which is essentially just a short alphanumeric bit of text that the machines can use to whenever they check in. And SSL or TLS, I put both of those up there because sometimes it could be used interchangeably, but use those certificates as well, which would lend to encrypting everything that's transferred. So some handy commands that I use with Munki. First and foremost is Munki import. I use that every time that I have something implemented. And here's some output from that command. I downloaded the Google Chrome package file and put that on the end of Munki import. And it noticed that I already had Google Chrome already in my Munki repo, so it prompted me about that. It just happened to be the same exact version as what I was trying to import, but I tried to implement or import it anyway so I could show you those steps. So if Munki does not find that package in your repo, it will start off with item name, and typically it will pull the information from the package file and go ahead and put that in there for you. It can be customized, and each particular line has its own moment where you can customize it. The version is usually pulled from the package file. The unintended install and unintended uninstall are automatically set to false, and you just backspace in it and change it to true if you want it to be true. Catalogs is typically set for you based upon what you selected the last time you did Munki import. And after that, it asks you whether you want to import this item. One line that was not in there that I typically get is what directory do you want to put it into. So within the packages directory, you can specify apps, for example. You can put it in there, nested in that folder, and it will work just fine. And the next thing it tries to do is to create a product icon. It'll ask you whether you want to, first and foremost, and what it will do is it will run a check and go through that package to see if there's any existing icon files, and if it does find it, it will include it whenever the item is imported. You also have the option of editing the package info file. So during your initial Munki configuration, Munki import does have a configuration before you do the import process. In that, you can select what text editor it will use to open up that package info file. And last but not least, it asks you to rebuild catalogs. Now, of course, you have the option of not doing it, but I would definitely suggest doing that. There is a command that can be run afterwards, make catalogs, that will rebuild those catalogs for you. So another command that has helped me out at times is manage software update -v. Now, if you run that and run it just like that, it will complain to you and say that you need sudo in front of it, and then it will happily do what it needs to do. But if you don't get enough information with -v, you can add a V, and then you can optionally add 3 or more V's, depending on how much information you need. As far as I know, this is the maximum number of V's that you can add. It might take more than that, but it won't give you any more than 5. And here are some additional switches that can be used with Managed Software Update. One is auto, and it will run like a normal check-in. So if there's updates, it will, or at least I say managed installs, it will automatically install those. And the last two, they give you the option to check only and to install only. There was a caveat in Rick Heil's presentation about install only that I typically don't use install only, so I wasn't aware of it. That I don't know, you have to see his presentation. Just be careful with that command. So an additional tool or utility that can be used in combination with Munki is Munki PKG, which will help you build a package file and install what you need to be installed. And now on to Munki Admin. So Munki Admin is essentially a graphical user interface for Munki. I like to work in a graphical environment. You don't have to use Munki Admin. It depends on your preference. In my case, I like the graphical interface. It shows me all the options that I have available to me with the plist files. In my opinion, it's an excellent companion to Munki. And actually going back up, if you're interested, from the GitHub site, the creator states that it is created in Objective-C and uses in-memory core data store as the backend. The app can be run on the Munki server, depends on the OS. It is a Mac OS compatible program or another Mac OS machine. In my case, I have a Munki admin program on my server and also on my workstation machine. And whenever I open it up on my workstation machine, I have a network share mapped to the Munki repo. So I just point Munki admin to the network share, and it's able to run properly. So Munki admin allows for easier administration of Munki, in my opinion. It allows for adding items as well. It can add items into the Munki repo, and it can also change settings in existing package info files, catalogs, and manifests. So here's a look at the interface for Munki admin. In the center section, you have all the install items, which this is the top of my list of everything that is in my Munki repo, and which I believe I've got Creation Air or Crestron Air Media selected down below, and this shows some information on that particular install item there on the right. Over on the left is how you can change some of your views. The packages view is the one currently selected. The middle one is catalogs, and the left, or excuse me, right in this case, is for manifests. If I were to double click on one of the install items, this is what you would see. In this case, of course, it's Adobe Reader DC. The name that's used by Munki is in the very top left text box, and down below that is the name that your end users would see. The version is, of course, 19.0.1. And some of the other things that you would find in the plist file, it keeps on going across the screen. Categories, developers, so on and so forth, whether it's an unintended install, install or uninstall, and down below is where you can set catalog. There is also another way where you can set the catalog, and that's within the catalog itself. It has a checkbox where you can just check that software, and whenever you save it, it'll be that catalog setting will be applied. Yes, sorry.
Is that information?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Yeah.
Is that information loaded manually when you upload the file, or do you have to, or automatically, or do you have to enter it manually?
The information is loaded automatically. Whenever you start Munki admin the first time, it'll ask for the repo, and then it'll parse through all the files in your repo, in the manifest catalogs and in the packages directory. It will load all that information. Yeah. So on the Contents tab, there are two things. One is installs, and the other is receipts. These are the items that Munki looks at in order to determine whether a program is installed or not. If it finds one of them, it'll bypass it. So every time Munki does a check, and let's say Adobe Reader DC was in the manifest for a machine, it would check for, of course, one of those items. The installs items typically is just a file. In this case, Adobe Acrobat Reader DC.app, and it looks like I did. And whenever I grabbed this screenshot, I didn't expand the other fields out. But essentially, what it's looking for is that app with the version, which is 19.0.10. It can also look for package receipts. So any packages that have a payload automatically drops a receipt, and you can see all those included with Adobe Reader. The next thing I wanted to show you is the Requirements tab, and on this tab I typically use either the minimum OS version or the other two on the left, which is Requires and Update For. So let's say, for instance, you wanted another software or package to be installed before Adobe Reader is installed. Now, normally we don't need anything else installed before it, so that's the reason why it's blank. But if for a reason you needed something installed, you can put it into the Requires tab or a section, and whenever you click the plus sign, it will list packages that you can put in there. And also for the Update For section is very, very similar to Requires, but this is where you can specify that Adobe Reader is an update for. So for instance, if you had an older version specifically specified for your machines and you didn't want to put version 19.0 in your manifest, you can skip a step. Whenever you import the Adobe Reader version 19, you can specify the version 18 in the Update For section, and all the machines that have that specified in their manifest, it will automatically install version 19. Now on the manifest side, if you were to double click one of the manifest items, and I apologize, I did not get the Munki admin main screen for manifests, but if you were to double click on one of those, the first thing that you get to would be the General tab, but I selected Managed Installs in this case, just to show you that it lists all the install items that I have for this particular room, and it lists all of the other options over on the left, which is Managed Uninstalls, Managed Updates. Optional installs would be for software packages that you want the end user to install themselves or have the option to install. Featured items is very similar, but the featured items are on the very beginning of Managed Software Center and show up on that first screen. Now down below, you'll see the section for included manifests, which we saw earlier in the text form, but I believe that the same two manifests are assigned to this particular one as well. And then down below is conditions. The conditional items that we saw in that first manifest, that's where it would show up. So Munki Web Admin 2 is another option, another alternative for Munki admins. So it's not as full-featured, in my opinion, as a Munki admin, but it wasn't intended to be that way. It wasn't intended to do everything that Munki admin, and I believe Munki Web Admin 2 actually came out before Munki admin. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it is intended to modify package info files and manifests that are already existing in your repo. Actually, I should say Munki Web Admin 2 is also created by Greg Nagel, so he's created quite a few things, along with Munki PKG as well. I didn't mention that. Moving on to another program which I use is Munki Report, and I believe 2 years ago, if not also last year, there were sessions on Munki Report, which would also give you more information as well. That should be up on the YouTube channel for the Mac Admins Conference. But this one also requires a web server. You can see some of the options. It also requires on the server PHP version 7.0 or higher with PDO SQLite and libxml. I'm pretty sure, the SQLite is for the database, but it is essentially a web-based reporting tool that provides information on practically all things Munki and Mac related. That's about as short as I could get it. On the Munki side of things, this is just a small selection of what it reports on Munki, but recent installations, recent errors, usually after an hour, those recent installation and errors will go away from the main interface that you get to when you log in. And one report that I like to use is the installation ratio report, and that will list all of your install items that is in your repo and then show how many machines have applied that particular install item. So if you ever have a question whether all your machines in the lab got the package, that's a good place to go. So on Continuing on, it lists inventory information, and you see all the different options and serial number, processor. It can report on the model, how fast it is, how many cores it has, and memory, how much memory you have, what type of memory it is, GPU, what model GPU, of course, what's its clock rate, and storage info. Whether you're running a solid-state drive, a traditional hard drive, platter hard drive, or a fusion drive. Let's see. Other items would be, of course, network, and I forgot to mention warranty. There is GSX integration if you can get it set up. I have not been successful as of yet getting it set up, mainly do a disconnect with our sales rep, but another item would be 5-volt status as well. So here's some extra items that have been contributed by different people within the Munki report realm, and they have a module for CrashPlan, a Microsoft SCCM, one for Office, one for Sentinel-1, Sophos AV, so on and so forth, with the TeamViewer beta being in, or TeamViewer module being in beta. Now I will give you a tidbit about the modules. So Munki report essentially ties into the Munki checkpoint, essentially. Whenever Munki checks in, the Munki report modules or Munki report does its scripts as well. So each module has its own particular script, and the more modules that you add on, the longer the Munki check-in process will be. So when your lab machines are sitting at the login screen and Munki runs, it has a dialog box and pretty much prevents the user from logging in at that time until it gets done with its check. So at one point I included everything, then I noticed how long it took, which is not overly long. I would say it didn't take over a minute, but still it was longer than I wanted to wait for it to finish. So I pared it back and, of course, reduced the time for the Munki check-in. One other program, yes. Would you mind talking into the catch box? Yeah.
Can you schedule that? So, for instance, when it's doing these reports or doing the check-in thing, it can happen in the middle of the night?
It actually can. I was not aware of that option before this week, but it is customizable, which was talked about in Rick Hiles' session on Wednesday. And but yes, it can be changed so that the check-in is only during, let's say, a maintenance window, which I was going to check into at some point. Yeah. One other program, I believe is the last one that I wanted to check or talk about is Apple Remote Desktop. And it's been around for a while. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. And there are, from what I can tell, mixed reviews on the usage of it. In my particular case, with remote management and remote login set, it works pretty good. And I will give another caveat: is with our network is also there haven't been any hiccups due to the network and Apple Remote Desktop. The reason why I included it is because you can install software with it. You can mainly PKGs as far as I know. But it also has other functionality, which is good for us who have labs spread out all over the place. Of course, you can use VNC that's built into macOS in order to remote into your systems, but Apple Remote Desktop has a way of keeping everything organized so you don't have to type in, let's say, the computer name or remember the IP address or even look it up. I mean, you can look it up in Munki Report, but once you have the machines imported into Munki, or excuse me, I really want to say Munki. I've probably said it plenty of times. Into Apple Remote Desktop, it is there, and whenever you start it up and go to that particular group, it'll automatically try to connect to it and get its current status. But it also allows for running scripts, bash scripts or shell scripts, whichever you prefer, as if you were there at the machine. And any output that would normally be on the endpoint would show up in the window for the script. Now, Apple Remote Desktop does cost $80, so there is that caveat. It's not free, unfortunately. So I will say that. All right, so the tally for our budgets in terms of Munki is pretty reasonable, in my opinion. Munki as a whole is free, of course, with Apple Remote Desktop being the most expensive one down there. Now, the Munki server can trump that, and depending on your situation, not everybody has a machine that they can use right off the bat as a server, so I totally understand that, but I decided not to include that startup cost in here. So it's definitely budget friendly. And with that, is there anyone who has questions?
I just had a quick question on the server. You said you were using like a Mac Mini,
Mhm.
like 2012, 2013 kind of guy.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that, I mean, that's just kind of reachable, just kind of a lightweight for
Yeah.
for the server.
Yes, it has served well for my 400 machines, except for the certain cases where I image a room or redo the OS, and then all of them hit the Munki server at the same time. Yeah, especially since I implemented the SSL certificates, it's bumped up the processor load, but the Mac Mini has served well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just wanted to say,
Mhm.
this is more comment, I guess, just
Uh-huh.
if you are running an older version of macOS server that has the web services built in and you upgrade and you lose access to your web services tab, your Apache server is still running in the background, so you might just need to get another application to manage it. I experienced this recently, so it's
Yeah.
a little bit scary.
Yes, in my case, I'm still running High Sierra, so I still have the web server functionality in there. Yes, that is definitely something to mention with that previous screen, because I did put the macOS server app in my run-throughs. I thought about mentioning that, and thank you for bringing it up, that I wouldn't suggest using the macOS server app because Apple is stripping functionality out of that app. So there is that caveat. Thank you. Yeah.
On the client side, during the installation process, do you
Mhm.
know of any tool which shows the status where the Munki server is currently like installing, so I can go around on the client and see roughly where I am?
Yes. During the check-in actually I will say both, there's two ways. During the check-in at the login window, there is a window that comes up and shows you the progress. I did not think of getting that screenshot. And also Managed Software Center also will show you progress as well. There's an updates section in there, and that's where all the managed installs will show up. You can open up Managed Software Center, go to the Updates tab, and then tell Munki to check into the server for any new things that show up. And it will not install them right away, even though it is in the Managed Installs section. It will list them for you and give you the option to install it. So, yeah. Yeah, in back.
On your multiple repos,
Mhm.
where you're r-syncing between them,
Yes.
is there load balancing that happens on that, or are the clients just round robin between those, or do you have those manually set? I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Which brings me to another point where I meant to mention how I get my clients to switch in between, not switch, that's not a good word to say. Once they're set, they're pretty much locked to that particular server. It can be customized, but my intention with the mirrored repos was to perform load balancing, and I first looked into our organization's F5, but there's a lot of things I had to go through in order to use that as a true load balancing situation. So I decided to do it manually, which it was through a script that it randomly generated a number, 1 to 3, and then set the server based upon the number. Yeah. Okay. Anybody? Oh, kind of.
That may be true. So you're running a Mac OS server, but an old version which has the web, stuff. And if I've got lots of Macs available that I could set up, but since I don't have a Mac server, I'd have to buy it. I presume I'd have to buy the very latest version.
Well, the Mac OS server app.
Mac OS server, right, which is not going to solve the web server.
If you want to run Apache, or if you want to manage Apache in a GUI, you can use MAMP.
Say it again.
MAMP.
Okay.
It allows you to make sure your Apache server is running and open the ports and set your web server directory. So you can do that with.
But that's something I can install on a Mac,
on any machine.
any machine.
It's free.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I
Yeah.
was kind of getting to was, so how do you
That's okay.
do that?
Thank you. I meant to mention MAMP as an option. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I would like to thank you for attending my session today. Here's the QR code for links to everything that I mentioned today, along with some commands. And thank you for attending my session. I hope you have a great trip back to your home. Thank you.